Why should I even consider anger management or therapy? Honestly, I behaved exactly as anyone else in my situation would have. It's not like I went too far or did something outlandish. Sure, a few people got caught up in the chaos, but honestly, they had it coming. Their choices disrupted my life, and now they're dealing with the fallout. Why should that be my burden to bear? Anyway, let me start from the beginning. My name is Max, and apparently I've been labeled as someone with an anger problem. At least, that's what the court seems to think. They've mandated that I attend these group therapy sessions as part of their judgment. I'm 36 years old, married, and a father to 3 amazing kids. My 2 sons and my little girl are my world. Today, during the group session, the counselor, Tom, kicked things off by turning to me and asking, "Max, why are you here? What brought you to these court-ordered sessions?" I exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the question, and replied, "Well, Tom, it's a bit of a long story." Tom gave me a patient smile and said, "That's all right, Max. Take your time. We've got 3 hours." With that, I cleared my throat and began to recount the chain of events that had led me here. I'll spare you the details of how I met my wife, Na. Just know that I once thought she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. The real story begins with my younger brother's bachelor party. It was a wild night, meant to give him a proper send-off before his wedding. The whole thing was over the top: strippers, booze, and even some questionable company. Let's just say it wasn't exactly a modest affair. I had been completely transparent with Na about the bachelor party beforehand. I didn't want any secrets lurking in the shadows that could cause problems later. To be honest, the party was absolute madness. It started on a Saturday afternoon and didn't officially end until Sunday evening, when the police showed up in response to a noise complaint. Despite the chaos, I made a point to stay in touch with Na throughout. I called her at least a dozen times over the course of the weekend. After my brother's wedding, life seemed to return to normal, at least for a while. A few months later, I came home after an exhausting day at work, desperate for a hot shower. I'm a fisherman, and it's a tough, gritty job, but I love it. There's something about the camaraderie among the guys at the docks that makes the hard work worthwhile. Anyway, I definitely needed that shower. Let's just say the smell of the sea wasn't doing me any favors. I had barely stepped out of the shower when everything went dark. It felt as though I'd been hit by a freight train. Disoriented, I tried to get up, only to find I couldn't move. My vision was blurred, but I could make out 2 figures in the room. As things came into focus, I realized it was Na and her sister. "So, you thought you could cheat on me?" Na snarled. I stared at her, utterly baffled. "What are you talking about?" I demanded. That's when I noticed I was strapped to a chair. My limbs were immobilized with layers of duct tape. They hadn't just tied me up, they had practically mummified me. "Let me go right now," I shouted. Na merely smirked. "Oh, I will. But not before I get my revenge, you liar." "Revenge for what?" I asked, still struggling to make sense of what was happening. I had no idea what she was talking about. My brother and I had been careful to follow the boundaries Na and I had agreed on before the bachelor party. Na and her sister walked out, leaving me tied up in that chair. I sat there helplessly, time dragging on until they returned, this time with company. To my shock, 5 men from the bachelor party followed them into the room. I recognized them immediately. "Untie me," I demanded through gritted teeth. My oldest friend, Ben, stepped forward. Ben wasn't just anyone. He had been my best friend for over 2 decades and was the best man at my wedding. I trusted him so much, I had even named my son after him. But when Ben looked at me, his expression was icy. "Max, you shouldn't have cheated on Na," he said coldly. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but before I could utter a word, Na shoved a ball gag into my mouth. Cheating? I had never cheated on Na, and Ben, of all people, knew that. Yet no one was listening. What followed was 3 hours of hell. They called it revenge, but to me, it was a nightmare. When it finally ended, Na disappeared into the bathroom for a shower, leaving me alone with the men I had once considered friends. Ben crouched down, meeting my gaze, and smirked. "Too bad we didn't record it," he sneered. One of the others removed the gag from my mouth, but I stayed silent, fuming. Ben leaned in closer. "You know, Max, Na is an incredible woman. I've wanted her for years, and I couldn't let this chance slip by. I know this means we're done as friends, but I had to do it." I said nothing, but my mind was already racing, plotting my next move. "Let it go, Max," Ben said, his tone dripping with mockery. "If you don't, someone's going to get hurt." With that, he struck me across the face, knocking me unconscious. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed. The first thing I noticed was Na, dozing in a chair by my bedside. I motioned to a nurse and whispered, "Please call the police." At first, she looked at me with confusion. Then I showed her the bruises on my wrists, evidence of the duct tape that had bound me. She nodded and quietly left the room. A few minutes later, the nurse returned to tell me that officers were on their way. By then, Na had woken up. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. When the police arrived, I didn't hold back. "My name is Max Trexler," I told them. "Earlier today, my wife orchestrated an attack on me involving 5 men. She accused me of cheating, but I didn't. I can name everyone involved, including 2 men who are police officers. So either do your job or leave." When I was finally released from the hospital, I decided it was time to inform the state attorney's office about everything that had transpired. The officer on duty asked me to recount the events, and I described the entire celebration and the chaos that followed when the gang showed up. Na sat frozen in disbelief, her jaw slack, as I explained that the bachelor party had been filmed to ensure there would be no disputes about anyone's involvement. I went on to tell the officer that the recording would verify whether any of the men had solicited a prostitute. The officer turned to Na, instructed her to stand, and informed her of her rights. She was promptly charged with assault and kidnapping. I provided a detailed list of names of everyone who had participated in the gang's antics. It was time to shift the balance of power. These people had put me through hell, and now it was their turn to face the consequences. As Na was being escorted out, she shot me a venomous look and hissed, "This isn't over, Max. You're making all of this up, and I'll make you regret it." Her threat didn't go unnoticed. The officer tacked on an additional charge for intimidating a witness. After spending a grueling week in the hospital, I resolved to take action. Enough was enough. It was time for justice. To keep my plans organized, I listed my grievances. They attacked me and put me in the hospital. They spread lies to ruin my reputation. They betrayed me by having an affair with my wife. My wife played an active role in their schemes. At that point, they could have her. I was done. Even if it cost me everything, I was determined to even the score. While recovering in the hospital, I meticulously mapped out my strategy. The day I was discharged, I headed straight to the bank. I withdrew $600, only to discover from the teller that my wife had attempted to access my accounts. Enraged, I tightened my resolve that her name wasn't listed. She later returned with a lawyer, both of them fuming. They were informed, in no uncertain terms, that she had no claim to the funds. They left, visibly enraged. From there, I paid a visit to my brother, hoping he could recommend a good attorney. At first, he lashed out, accusing me of betraying our friends by getting them arrested. Furious, I started to leave, but he stopped me, demanding an explanation. For the next hour, I laid everything bare, recounting the betrayal and its fallout in meticulous detail. He and his wife listened in stunned silence, their expressions a mix of shock and disbelief. When I finished, his wife accused me of fabricating the entire story. My brother, however, defended me, insisting I wasn't the type to lie. "But out," he told her firmly. She fired back. "You don't know what you're talking about. You're just blindly siding with him. What's gotten into you?" he snapped, frustration boiling over. If you're going to side with her, just say it. This is my brother, and I'll stand by him. Enraged, she stormed off, grabbing her purse from their bedroom. I'm leaving, she declared dramatically. My brother didn't flinch. Let me make one thing clear, he said coldly. If you're against my brother, let me know now so we can end this marriage. You're either with us or you're not. She left, slamming the door. Moments later, she returned to toss her wedding ring onto the floor before walking out for good. Good riddance, my brother muttered, his voice devoid of emotion. The following day, we met with an attorney to put my plan into motion. By the week's end, the wheels were turning. Friday morning began with drama. At precisely 9 a.m., a large for sale sign appeared on my front lawn, just as Na was leaving for work. She screeched to a halt, jumped out of her car, and started berating the realtor. What do you think you're doing? She yelled. The realtor, unbothered, calmly showed her the paperwork. The property is being sold, he explained. He can't do this, she screamed. The realtor, unfazed, replied, Actually, it's his house. Later that day, while Na was at work, she was approached by her boss and a man carrying an envelope. You've been served, the man said as he handed it to her. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. I received over 50 calls, many from furious wives demanding answers. To each of them, I told the entire truth, sparing no details. In addition to the calls, I received over 20 death threats, all of which I documented. Their anger only amused me. How could they think I'd let their betrayal go unchallenged after everything they'd done to me? The next day, my lawyer filed 5 civil lawsuits, each demanding $5 million in damages. Na also faced legal action for assault and theft. My brother and I stayed the course, even as so-called family members and acquaintances tried to interfere. As the trial date for the assault charges approached, tensions reached a boiling point. The day before the trial, Ben ambushed me in the parking lot outside my office. He jumped out from behind a car, seething with rage. Without thinking, I pulled out my .38 revolver and accidentally shot him in the groin. When the police arrived, Ben was writhing on the ground, screaming that I had tried to kill him. Calmly, I pointed the officers toward the security cameras, which had captured everything. Realizing he'd been caught on tape, Ben's face went pale. Ben, you absolute fool, I said with a sly grin. Don't stress too much, though. Maybe they'll be able to sew your balls back on. If not, well, let's just say you'll be in high demand in prison. A guy without balls? You'll be everyone's favorite. Minutes later, an officer returned with the security footage and asked for my gun license. I handed it over calmly, and after a quick check, the officer nodded approvingly. You're free to go, he said. The trial was a breeze. The stag party security footage didn't just clear my name of cheating. It actually showed me calling Na every few hours to check in. Ironically, Ben and Na decided to face the trial together. Na, ever confident, was convinced they'd walk away scot-free. When the judge asked Na why she believed I'd been unfaithful, she didn't hesitate to blame Ben. He told me so, she said bluntly. But Ben's attorney wasn't having it. That's a lie, he countered. Na has been pursuing Ben for years. She's the one who wanted to sleep with him. Na froze. Her face turned pale, her mouth hanging open. Her lawyer immediately objected and requested a recess. During the break, Na's attorney approached me. Max, listen, he began, his tone unusually soft. I know you're angry, but can you let this go? Do you really want to destroy her completely? I smirked, the weight of everything she had done flashing through my mind. Destroy her, I repeated. You mean the way she tried to destroy me? Tell her I said no. See you in court. I stared him down, my voice cold and sharp. Are you seriously asking me to help her? After she and Ben tied me up, left me for dead, and landed me in the hospital? I could have died. No. She's getting exactly what she deserves. Without another word, I turned and walked away. But Nina wasn't ready to give up. She approached me cautiously, her voice trembling. "Max, can we talk?" she pleaded softly. "I'm sorry. I made a huge mistake. I was angry and let my emotions take over. I never imagined Ben would turn on me." Her voice cracked as she continued. "You know me, I'm hot-headed, but I know you still care about me, deep down. Please, Max, don't let your pride ruin me." I looked at her, my voice heavy with pain. "Nina, you hurt me in ways I can't even describe. But fine, against my better judgment, I'll talk to the DA and ask him to go easy on you." But when I approached the DA, I leaned in and whispered, "Don't let her off the hook. Nail her." Then, turning back, I gave Nina a thumbs up and walked away. She'd get exactly as much mercy as I had when she left me to bleed out. None. In the end, Nina received a 5-year sentence. Ben, however, got 20. Their punishments rippled through our circle of friends, sending everyone into a panic. Terrified they'd be next, the others scrambled to cut deals with the authorities. Not long after the sentencing, Ben's wife, Sharon, confronted me. Her face was a mixture of rage and sorrow. "Max, what Ben did to you was awful. But did you really have to destroy our lives too?" she demanded. I met her gaze, unflinching. "Sharon, your husband beat me so badly, I ended up in the hospital for a week. He and Nina left me there to die. I did what I had to do. At least he'll get out eventually. Me, I lost everything, my wife, my friends, even some of my family. So tell me, who's the real victim here?" Without waiting for a response, I walked away. You'd think that would be the end of it, but life had other plans. While Ben was still in jail awaiting transfer to prison, I got arrested for drunk driving. During my 10-day stint in county lockup, I decided to give Ben a proper send-off. In the rec room, I beat him senseless, smashed a metal tray into his face, and kicked him in what remained of his manhood more times than I could count. When I stood before the judge, he gave me a knowing look. "You've made your point," he said, slapping me with a $100 fine and time served. Over the next few months, I tied up loose ends. 2 of the guys were ambushed in a bar fight and zapped with over 1,000 volts straight to the groin. The remaining 2 were jumped by a group of masked men, while I just so happened to be visiting family in Texas. Pure coincidence, of course. Now I'm here in anger management class, recounting all of this because the judge thinks I have issues. The room was silent for a moment before my classmates erupted into applause. I was puzzled until Tom, one of the guys, stood up. "Max, you need to learn to let things go," he said, shaking my hand. "Revenge doesn't solve anything. Ben and the others are in prison, and your divorce didn't cost you a cent. What more could you want?" I laughed. "Not a damn thing. But here's the twist. Those guys got off easy compared to some of the stories I've heard in this class. One guy caught his wife cheating and shoved an axe handle where the sun doesn't shine. Another clamped a pair of vice grips onto his wife's lover and tightened them. The scariest one? A doctor who drugged his wife's lover and injected battery acid into his... Well, you get the idea. All of them served at least 5 years and now sit beside me as part of their parole. I guess the judge is trying to tell me something. Meanwhile, my brother's wife has returned, desperate to win his forgiveness. She used to be Nina's best friend, but chose to side with us instead of warning her. I told my brother to consider giving her another chance. As for me, I'm dating a fiery redhead I met while delivering Nina's final divorce papers. She was there doing the same for her ex. And Sharon, she's divorced from Ben now too. She even warned me that Ben, with his new prison buddies, had asked her to kill me so he could argue for a retrial. It seems revenge always comes full circle. "Ben, listen to me," Sharon declared, her voice unwavering but charged with fiery determination. "Max will face the consequences. He's going to feel every single ounce of what he's done. When he looks into my eyes, he'll know exactly how much pain he caused me." Ben, ever the optimist, didn't question her conviction. Sharon had a way of speaking that left no room for doubt. As I watched her, I understood why. Her eyes didn't carry bitterness or hatred, only profound strength, fueled by love and resolve. On the other hand, Nina reaches out to me every week, begging for a chance to talk. She's finally starting to take responsibility for her actions, though it's been a long time coming. She's even joined group therapy to confront her struggles with anger. In some ways, I can relate. I've experienced that kind of overwhelming rage before. So, where am I now? To be honest, I feel amazing. Maybe that makes me seem unfeeling or detached, but this is my story, and I'll tell it exactly how it is. I've always believed in standing your ground. That doesn't mean I condone vengeful acts like tearing someone's life apart because they wronged you. That's not the path to peace. At the same time, letting yourself be walked all over isn't the answer either. Life is about striking a balance, protecting your dignity when someone betrays you, but staying true to yourself in the process. If you like this story, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more.